Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 694, February the 15th, 2019, Friday. Thank you so much for tuning in. Well, this is one of those days when there is so much news, important stories to cover, there's no way I'll get to it all. Probably take me 2 or 3 TowerGates just to get through what has broken in the last 24 hours. A lot going on out there. So I'll do the best I can and we'll just keep on rolling. So let's see. Let's start right here. Please tell me that Andy McCabe didn't just admit that he and his friends plotted a coup against Trump. That's certainly what it looks like. I'm sure many of you have seen this little teaser from Scott Pelley at 60 Minutes for this 60 Minutes that will be coming up this Sunday, which is an interview with Andy McCabe. So Scott Pelley in 60 Minutes say that McCabe told him that there were meetings at the DOJ where it was discussed whether the vice president and a majority of the cabinet could be brought together to remove the president under the 25th Amendment. Pelley says top bureaucrats were counting noses and speculating on where various cabinet officials might stand on the question of the president's removal. This happened during the week between when Comey was fired and when Mueller was appointed. McCabe says that Rodenstein offered more than once to wear a wire into the White House to record incriminating conversations with Trump. McCabe says he took the idea seriously and he discussed it with FBI lawyers. McCabe also said he wanted to put together a Russia investigation on solid ground, a counterintelligence investigation of Trump and his alleged ties to Russia that could not be stopped even if he were removed, which he was, fired or reassigned. All this and more are detailed in McCabe's new book, The Threat. McCabe's full interview with 60 Minutes with Scott Pelley will air this coming Sunday night. What is going on here? Well, we've known this book was in the works for months now. It's just a matter of the timing of the release date of the book and this interview, which likely has been in the can for weeks, if not months. So McCabe and the other perps know that the game is just about up. This is McCabe's attempt to position himself in the best possible position to fight the charges that are likely coming his way. Now, the DOJ has responded with a statement on behalf of Rodenstein saying that the deputy AG rejects McCabe's recitation of events as inaccurate and factually incorrect. The deputy AG has never authorized any recording that McCabe references. Really? That's not what Lisa Page and James Baker say. Rodenstein, of course, did sign the June 27th FISA to spy on Trump. It was the Carter Page FISA, but it was intended to spy on Trump because of the two-hop rule. And this occurred 1 month after Rodenstein appointed Mueller. He pulled McCabe off the investigation. So, as I said, what is going on here? Well, they realize that the entire Trump-Russia narrative has been blown up, and they realize that the real facts and the real truth is now coming out, and it's going to come out, and that there is now a new attorney general, so they don't have their boy Rodenstein and Uncle Bob are not going to be around to protect the evidence, which will lead to their incrimination. So they've got to do something, and it looks like it's McCabe who is the first one to jump. He is the first one to make a move to position himself to blame other people for what happened. He's probably going to claim that he believed everything in the dossier. You watch and see. Because as we know from the scope memo, the first scope memo, which we did see, now we haven't seen the scope memo. No one has seen the second scope memo other than Whitaker, Rodenstein, Uncle Bob, obviously, and probably people on his team. But as far as members of Congress, Nunes wasn't allowed to see it. Grassley wasn't allowed to see it. No one's been allowed to see the second scope memo by Rodenstein. But I read the very first scope memo right here on TowerGate. And we remember what it said. Rodenstein brought in Uncle Bob, the executioner, to continue the investigation. What investigation was that? The investigation set in place by McCabe, which was based on what? The dossier, right along with the FISA warrants and everything else. It was all based on a fraud, which they knew was a fraud. Opposition research paid for by the rotten Reverend Clinton. And they knew it. They did all this based on fraud. And they know they're going to be caught. As I said many months ago, and as many of you know and agree, I'm sure, is that when you get in these types of situations where you identify the perps, you've uncovered the crime, and you indict that first person or first couple of people. Once that happens, everybody who's caught up in it realizes that they have criminal liability, and they start coming out of the woodwork to turn state's evidence against other people to save their own asses. And this is exactly what McCabe's doing. He's not waiting around. And of course, we know from reading the Page Strzok text during the week between the firing of Comey and the appointment of Uncle Bob, there was a lot of crazy conversations going on. And when you look at those conversations now in context with what we're hearing here and everything else that we know, it's pretty obvious. And this is exactly what the insurance policy, this is what they were talking about. Setting up an investigation that would frame Trump. That was the insurance policy, frame Trump. Put in Uncle Bob. That way, if the plot was discovered, they could use Uncle Bob to control the evidence so that no one could see the evidence. Where do we see that second scope memo? Because I'm pretty sure at some point we are going to. There's a lot of documents and a lot of witnesses we've not been able to hear from. So, as I said about a week ago in the TowerGate video, the worm has turned. And over the next 2 years, it's going to be, the Russian narrative is going to have been put to bed and proven to be a fraud. This is going to have a very negative impact on a lot of media organizations and all those who were involved in the plot. And I don't think, as I said before, even if Barr doesn't want to go after these people, he's really not going to have much choice, because there's simply going to be too much evidence. It's going to be nearly impossible to let these people off the hook as more and more evidence comes forward. Because once Uncle Bob is gone and Rodenstein is gone, the only person who could possibly protect the evidence then is Barr. And I don't think Trump's going to let that happen, because he'll basically call Barr in his office and say, hey, the Mueller investigation's over. It was proven to be a fraud. You have all the evidence that they tried to run a frame-up on me. It's right there in front of your face. All the evidence is there. I want you to investigate that and prosecute the crimes. Or guess what, Mr. Barr? If you don't, I'm going to declassify everything, and you're going to look like a damn fool. Trump will have to get involved, I believe. But I believe he will. But Mueller's got to be gone. Because as we know, Uncle Bob went to the courts and said if Trump tries to declassify, he needs to be made aware, his attorneys need to be made aware, if he declassifies any of this information while I'm conducting my investigation, we'll consider that a case of obstruction against the president. So they've even been blackmailing him or extorting him so that he cannot use declassification as a way to get the truth out. So Barr, having just been confirmed today, 55 to 45, is now going to have to get in there, kick Rodenstein's ass out the door, call on Uncle Bob, and lay it out on the table. Let's face it. We know the original scope memo said that Mueller was taking over the current existing investigation, which was an investigation built on fraud. Therefore, Uncle Bob's investigation is the same investigation that was constructed on fraud. Therefore, it needs to be shut down. It also means that Uncle Bob realizes that the entire thing was based on a fraud, and he's been perpetrating this fraud for 2 additional years, which means he and his team should be the first ones indicted. As a result, Lindsey Graham is now saying that McCabe needs to come and testify to his committee under oath, along with others involved in the plot. Graham wants to know why a FISA warrant was issued against Carter Page. Well, we know the answer to that, don't we? I think that's a rhetorical question. Graham also wants to hear from Rodenstein. Of course, Trump has already mocked McCabe in a tweet describing McCabe as being a puppet for Comey. And he also says that McCabe gave Hillary a pass because his wife received big dollars from Clinton's people for his wife's political campaign. Yeah, and that's another developing story that we haven't even got time to get into. But now the individual who was going to be running for the seat there in Virginia is now talking and saying that he was pushed out, and pushed out by friends of Hillary, specifically McAuliffe, to make way for McCabe's wife. Now, what does that look like? It looks like the rotten reverend must have called her good friend, the bagman for the Clintons, Terry McAuliffe, and said, hey, this whole email investigation could be a real problem. Fortunately, the number 2 guy there who may be running it is this McCabe guy. You know, we need to find a way to buy off Andy. You know, his wife, we could have her run for some political office and we could funnel a bunch of money towards her. She's not going to win, but we'll funnel a huge amount of money to her. And maybe that'll help Andy make a better decision so that he'll cover up Rotten Reverend's crimes and run the Trump-Russia narrative. It sure looks like a quid pro quo to me. And now this other Democrat who was pushed out is raising some serious questions about the shenanigans that went on that forced him out to open the door for Ms. McCabe. Even though she was not even a viable political candidate. And she got a huge donation. Huge. Clearly, more evidence here that there is a dispute, and we know that because of the Page and Strzok texts. We know that there was a battle at this time for control of the investigation. We know that Strzok and Page and McCabe wanted to be in control of this, and we know that they were fighting to keep it away from the clutches of the DOJ. At the same time, they were fighting to keep it away from the clutches of the Obama White House, which also wanted to run it. Everybody wanted to run the show. Everybody wanted to own it up until now. We do know that Rodenstein removed McCabe from having any participation in the Mueller probe I think I read it was a month, but I don't think it was a month. I think it was shortly after Rodenstein appointed Mueller, he pulled McCabe off of it. So clearly there was a dispute going on, a power struggle between McCabe and Rodenstein, between the FBI and the DOJ, and both of them trying to keep it from the White House, who also wanted to be running the show. And the Rotten Reverend probably directing all the chaos. She was the traffic cop, directing the traffic. That's why it was such a mess. And a 20-car pileup, because the Rotten Reverend was running it. She F's up everything, does she not? None of this is going to work, because the evidence used to start the investigation was the dossier, a fraudulent document, and they knew it. But they used it anyway. Now they're trying to get out ahead of the storm, but it's not going to work. The media, of course, is doing their best to assist, because they are guilty as hell as well. So this is the beginning of the end. This is the beginning of the end, the unraveling. I have no confidence in Barr, myself. He's going to be pressured, obviously, by Lindsey Graham and a bunch of Republicans. He gave his word that he believes in equal justice under the law. He gave his word that he would investigate these things. And if I'm Trump, I give Barr 30 days. 30 days to evict Rodenstein, to shut down Uncle Bob, to call Uncle Bob in and say, well, your entire investigation was based on a fraud, my man. And I'm pretty damn sure that you realized that early on if you didn't know from the very beginning. You need to shut it down immediately. And I need to tell you, Uncle Bob, even though our wives go to church together and we're good buddies, I'm going to fry your ass if I find out that you in fact did know and were a part of this coup plot. That's what needs to happen. And if that doesn't happen, I'm Trump. I give Barr 30 days. 30 days. I call him in my office tomorrow morning. Say, well, congratulations, my new Attorney General Barr. Congratulations. You've got 30 days. 30 days to appoint a special counsel to end the Mueller investigation and appoint a special counsel looking into the real crime of the fraud that took place and the coup. That's what you've got. If you don't do it in 30 days, I am declassifying everything. And I don't give a damn what the intel community or anyone says. I'm declassifying all of it. And you can figure it out. It's the beginning of the end, my friends. 2 long years we've been going through this. And I told you, that's why I stay on this story. Because I've been telling you for 2 years now. It's too big of a story to go away. You can't run a coup on the president and get away with it if he in fact wins the election. Now, if he had lost the election, this would all be over. But he won the election. And that's what makes it all different. That's why they had to run the cover-up. A lot of people are going to be exposed here. Not just the perps at the DOJ and the FBI. We haven't even gotten into the intel community yet. But they played a major role because they manufactured the evidence that was used. Wait till they find out that Christopher Steele wasn't the author of anything. There's a lot of questions that need to be answered. This thing is going to come completely unraveled. And it's going to happen very quickly, just as soon as Uncle Bob is gone. And that better happen damn quick. Because there's no need whatsoever, there's no reason whatsoever for Uncle Bob to continue his witch hunt. It was based on fraud. Mr. Barr cannot be that stupid. Unbelievable. So I expect what will happen in the weeks to come is you will see the dividing lines will be between the FBI and the DOJ. The FBI blaming the DOJ blaming the FBI, and then of course it's eventually going to find its way into the Obama White House, and then of course they'll be pointing. It's going to be a circular firing squad. It's going to be the FBI, the DOJ, and the White House, and eventually the intel community, all pointing the finger at each other. They'll all be shooting each other. It will be a circular firing squad. As soon as the first heavy indictment or two comes down, the whole thing will collapse because everybody will be running to the nearest U.S. attorney to try to get protection for themselves by becoming a witness. It's exactly what's going to happen. This whole thing is going to come unraveled. Unbelievable. It's going to take some time. It's going to require some patience. But as I said, about a week ago, we've turned the corner. The jig is up. It's just a matter of time. Well, the other big issue that we need to get to is that Trump is set to sign, we're being told that Trump is set to sign this spending bill as we sit here on Thursday evening. That's what we're being told, that he is going to sign this spending bill and simultaneously declare a national emergency. Now, I'm not so sure about that, just because that's what's being reported, just because that's what McConnell said. But it looks like to me that the Democrats have loaded up the bill with some really bad mojo, as usual and as expected, such as restrictions on where and what type of wall can be built. Also, where Trump would have to get permission from these border cities, and a lot of these border cities have liberal governments, that he would have to get their permission to build the wall. And it's not even the wall he wants. It's a fence. This bill would prevent him from building the type of fence that he wants. And it would limit him to where he can build it. It practically doesn't give him anything. It's a sham. The Republicans got their ass handed to them again. How could that happen when 2/3 of the country support Trump and support his plan for the border wall, for border security, and agree that we have a crisis on the border? 3/4, almost 72%, support the plan. How can you go into a negotiation when 3/4 of the people have your back and you come out and you get your ass kicked? How is that possible? Based on what I can see, I would veto this bill. In fact, what I would do, I would go back to McConnell and say, sorry, this doesn't cut it. So I think we need to have a 30-day extension, another 30 days for you to keep negotiating. And you need to get rid of the following things. These restrictions on where I can build the wall and what type of wall. Restrictions on who having to get permission from various authorities, counties or communities or cities or whatever along the border. No way. And some of these other things. So I would tell McConnell, let's go ahead and extend the period for another 30 days for negotiation. And while you're doing that, I'm going to go ahead and declare a national emergency and start building the damn wall. And the Democrats can go ahead and file the lawsuit. That's fine. They will lose. They might win in the Ninth Circuit, but it'll go to the Supreme Court. They'll fast track it in 6 to 7 weeks. Trump will win. And in the meantime, they're building the wall. They're building the wall with funds from the previous allocation. Money that was already allotted from the previous budget. So they've got enough money and enough work to keep them busy for the next 2 to 3 months, while Trump goes the other way, which is declare a national emergency. He's got 3/4 of the people in the country support him. He needs to veto this bill, or just flat out tell McConnell, what I would do, I'd tell McConnell that to reach an agreement for another 30 days of negotiation. And I would declare a national emergency. And then in 30 days, if they came back to me with another bill that looks like this, I'd tell him, it looks like you haven't got where you need to go, Mitch. Let's go for another 30 days. I would just keep going for these 30-day renegotiation periods until 2020, while I declare a national emergency and build the damn wall, without any of the other bullshit stacked into this bill. We don't know what's in this bill. 1,100 pages, just from what I've learned about it, and the simply 1 hour of time I had to look into it. I wouldn't touch this bill. I wouldn't sign this bill. But you don't want the government shutdown. The solution, declare a national emergency and tell Mitch to extend the negotiation period for another 30 days. And sign a continuing resolution just to get the basics done so that people get paid who are federal employees. Make sure they get paid so you don't have government shutdown. Continue, but don't actually sign the bill until it is fixed. And give them another 30 days. And if that doesn't work, give them another 30 days. And I keep doing that now until 2020 while I'm building the damn wall, using the emergency powers and getting money from other places. Department of Homeland Security, the defense budget, plenty of places Trump could pull the money from. It's time to go hardball. And Trump is alone. He is alone. Twitch McConnell and the Republicans who are in this negotiation are asshats. I cannot believe that you can go into a negotiation with 3/4 of the people supporting you and you come out with this kind of crap. This is absolutely Unbelievable. Just unbelievable. And totally unacceptable. I hope he doesn't sign the bill. And I don't think that vetoing it and getting us back into a government shutdown is a good idea either. Again, my recommendation, declare a national emergency, go back to Mitch, tell him the bill's not good enough, tell him that work out another 30-day extension for them to negotiate. And just keep doing that. Just keep extending this negotiations and never really sign on to anything. Make sure federal workers get paid and build the damn wall. That's how you got to play in this town, in the swamp. In the swamp, it's swampy. You got to play dirty. Because you're playing with the dirtiest characters on the block. This is how they play. Now, in response to Trump saying he will declare a national emergency, we get Madam Botox, Nancy Pelosi, warning that the next Democratic president could use national emergency to restrict guns. Yeah, sure. Go ahead and try that. You see, here's the difference. 2/3 of the people support Trump and know that there is an actual crisis on our border. And it's common sense. Has a lot of support. And there have been 23 national emergencies declared just since 2000. They declare national emergencies all the time. This will be the first time Trump has done it. Obama declared national emergencies a half a dozen, 8 or 10 times. So did Bush. So did Clinton. All presidents declare national emergencies. So that's no big deal. But yeah, if Nancy Pelosi tried, this little taunt here is going nowhere. And the threat that a Democratic president, assuming there will ever be another Democratic president, I'm not so sure there'll be a Democratic Party 2 years from now, let alone another Democratic president. It ain't going to happen in 2020, I can tell you that. But even just a tease like this, that, well, you know, a Democrat president could use national emergency to deal with guns, to restrict guns. Oh, yeah? Go ahead and try that. Because I can assure you 2/3 of the country don't support that. I can also pretty much assure you that about 2/3 of the country's governors, sheriffs, and citizens would not participate in that. They would have a revolt. You would have a civil war in the country. You destroy the country. The majority of the people in this country will not give up their Second Amendment rights. Period. I don't care what kind of emergency you declare. Nancy, you want to start a civil war? You want to destroy the country, divide the country? You want to see your party completely destroyed? I mean, I don't even think that she could even get the Democratic votes. If she tried to do something like that, or a Democratic president tried to do it, I believe that nearly every Democrat in Congress, a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them certainly would switch over and become Republicans. Or they would sign on to a Republican bill to somehow reverse or fight back against it. You would have governors all over the country, probably a good, at least half to 2/3 of them refusing to do any type of a gun confiscation. You would have sheriffs all across the country refusing to do it. Citizens all across the country would have massive, massive, massive protests. I mean, it would be the biggest destabilizing move that anyone's ever pulled off in the country as president. That's why Nancy Pelosi is nuts. Well, the Treasury Department knows who leaked Michael Cohen's banking records to Michael Avenatti. The Treasury began the investigation after the leak became public. The name has not yet been released, but it will be. It is suspected that the leak came from someone in the DOJ's office in the Southern District of New York or one of Mueller's thugs. The person is only being identified as a law enforcement official. More to come on that. Finally, there's a story that I have not talked about yet. I've been kind of watching it. I'm sure a lot of you have too. I just wanted to see what really happened with it. And it's the story about this actor who I've never heard of before named Jussie Smollett. Jussie Smollett. He apparently is an actor on the show Empire. I've never seen the show Empire. I have no idea what it is. But he's apparently an actor on the show Empire. Now, I knew that he made some claim that he was attacked by a couple of white guys in MAGA hats. And he was apparently beaten up and like a rope put around his neck or something. Well, they've been investigating this now for several weeks. and now it appears there's been a major break in the case, and it looks like that Smollett and the two alleged attackers were actually accomplices along with him, and that they staged and faked the entire thing. It appears that the two accomplices were actually Nigerians who do have bit roles also on the show Empire. And it appears now that the cops went and raided their places only to find, when they got there, that the two Nigerians had fled to Nigeria. But their apartments were raided. And it appears that the cops are very close to filing charges against Jussie Smollett for perpetrating this fraud. The Democrats do a lot of perpetrating frauds, do they not? The problem is that just like in the case of the boys over at the Catholic high school in northern Kentucky, the media, the Hollywood idiots, and all their friends, left-wing politicians, jumped all over this. And they're all in. Do you think that they'll cover the story the way they did when the fraudulent story was put out? Do you think that they'll cover the true story once it's now out that this was all a fraudulent scam by this guy Jussie Smollett? Because it's very likely in the next couple of days he's going to be charged. You know, I'm going to go way out on a limb here. When you look at everything that's happening, not just with this, but with the whole Spygate thing unraveling, and all these things happening, and all the these people who went after the kids at the Covington Catholic High School, a lot of these actors, media organizations, journalists are going to be sued, and sued big time. Lin Wood has a very good track record. He generally doesn't bring a case unless he knows it's a winner. And he's going for big money. He's going to bankrupt some of these B-list actors. He's going to do some serious financial damage to some of these big media organizations and journalists. And I'm just waiting for what defense that they're all going to use. And here's what I'm thinking they're going to do. I'm thinking they're going to find a couple of high-profile left-wing doctors who are going to come out and make some sort of an official statement saying that they have determined that Trump derangement syndrome is a real disease, that it's real serious, and that it is the reason why the FBI, the DOJ, the intel community, the media, Hollywood, and all the rest perpetrated the Spygate fraud. It's also the reason that this guy here staged this little MAGA white guy attack on him. It's also the reason that they have done all the crazy, illegal, fraudulent things they've done in a way to create a loophole for them to get out of it. They're going to try to claim that Trump derangement syndrome is real, that it's a real disorder caused by Trump, and therefore these people cannot be held accountable for their actions because they suffer from this medical condition known as Trump derangement syndrome. This is probably how they're going to try to get out of all their paying for their crimes. It's the only thing I see, because they took a fraudulent document, opposition research, paid for by the Right Reverend Clinton, and they used it using the force and full force and power of the government, FISA warrants, agent provocateurs, at least 5 different investigations, complete media smear jobs, leaks to the media that were then used as evidence to get FISAs, you name it. I mean, there's a long, long list of crimes, lying to the FISA court, withholding material evidence, withholding exculpatory evidence. There's a long, long list of serious, serious crimes here, along with all these other things that we talk about. They'll need to find some way out. And I think that this is how they're going to do it. They're going to try to get people to seriously accept that Trump derangement syndrome is in fact a serious disease caused by Trump, and therefore these people cannot be held accountable for their actions because they were temporarily insane with Trump derangement syndrome. Think I'm crazy? Stick around. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow with more TowerGate. See ya. Bye.